Welcome back to the Become Your Own Muse podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Lowy. It has been a really crazy couple of weeks over here. I visited the Gorge in Washington for the first time with my husband, with a lot of my close friends, and we got to see ODESZA at the Gorge. If you don't know what the Gorge is, it's this iconic music venue, outdoor amphitheater in Washington. And it sits right along the cliff of this just massive what's it called? It's like a Grand Canyon type of looking thing with a river running through it, and it was just gorgeous. ODESZA is one of my favorite artists. They were truly incredible. They just put on such a show, and it was 3 days of seeing them perform live. It was the final show on their 2-year tour, so we were super blessed to be there. It was just a ridiculously fun time. If you follow me on social media, you saw all the crazy outfits that we wore and just the time that we had. So yes, it was truly a blast. I highly recommend anyone who has not visited the Gorge to get there. It is almost I live in Colorado, so the Red Rocks Amphitheater is kind of in my backyard, and I go there frequently. So it's the Red Rocks of Washington, but it's very, very cool. Today, I want to talk about how to know if your spending is good or bad. Is there good spending? Is there bad spending? Like how to know when you should be spending your money or should not be spending your money. So let's talk about that today. And I think the biggest thing that I want people to understand is that spending money isn't bad, but when you use it to regulate your emotions, it is. Because the way that money should be viewed, it should be viewed in two ways. One, it should be viewed as a tool, meaning it allows you to get things. It allows you to have groceries, allows you to have a house over your head, allows you to get healthy. It allows you to invest towards your future, into retirement, allows you to, do all those things, allows you to, I don't know. Yes, just your future, things like that. It allows you to retire. So it's a tool, right? You're using it as a tool to create the life that you want, to get the things in life that you desire. And number two is it should be used to enjoy yourself, right? Because you're along for the ride and you earn this you have this hard earned money. You want to enjoy yourself. That means vacations. That means going to concerts. That means like going on these trips and doing things. And, like for example, something that we invested in was a camper van. And technically that's a depreciating asset where you're actually losing value in it over time. But we didn't do it from a place of we're investing in this as a means to make money, where we bought the camper van, we converted it as a means to have pure enjoyment and elevate the experiences that we could have, because we can now camp in this camper van and we could be more comfortable as we were camping, right? So that camper van has allowed us a lot of really cool opportunities and experiences. So really, when you're looking at your money, am I using this from a place of this is a tool to get me something in life, or is it truly being enjoyed, right? But and when you are, there's obviously a nuance to everything, but like when you are spending money to enjoy yourself, you of course have to be cognizant that it's within your means, right? If you're taking 20 vacations a year and your budget doesn't allow for that based on how much money you make, we need to look at that too. But from a general overarching standpoint, money should be used as a tool. It should be used to enjoy your life. When money is technically bad, when spending money is bad, is when it's used to regulate your emotions. So when you are feeling insecure, maybe you're like, oh, I just don't feel good about myself today. Oh, I don't feel like I'm pretty enough. I need to go buy the makeup. I need to buy the clothes. Like you're just feeling down on yourself, and you go to spend your money to make yourself feel better or feel more validated. Maybe you're having a bad day or a bad week, and you're like, you know what? I'm just so sad right now. I'm just feeling XYZ. I'm going to open the Amazon app. I'm going to go to the mall. I'm going to have some retail therapy to make me feel better. Or maybe it's like feeling the need to prove yourself, where, all your friends make a certain income and they, have all the cool camping gadgets, and you're like, I need to have the cool camping gadgets too. I need to prove that I fit in. Or like all your friends maybe have like a designer handbag, and you're like, well, I need to do that to prove that I fit in and I'm good enough, right? So you're almost like using your money as a way to get validation that you belong or that you fit in with the rest of your friends. Or just like you're bored. Like you wake up on a Saturday, you don't have anything planned. You're like, I don't really know what to do today. And the first thing that you go to do is, why don't I go to the mall? Why don't I go to, I don't know, like the market to see like what I can spend my money on? So when you're using it as a way to regulate your emotions, this is not how you should be spending your money. And the reason is because there's going to be negative consequences from this. If you are someone who is using their money not as a tool, not as enjoyment, but you're using it to regulate your emotions, what's going to happen is you're always going to need something external to you to feel like you are secure and that you are validated. If you get in this habit of every time you feel sad or every time you're going through a hard week, you convince yourself like, oh, I deserve this. Like, this will make me feel better. What you're doing is you're clinging on to external things. You're saying, in order for me to feel better, in order for me to regulate myself, I have to spend my money. So naturally what happens is you get in this loop and you train yourself to believe that in order to feel better, I need to spend money. In order to be able to regulate myself, I need to spend money. And it's not an actual solution, right? Because when we go to spend the money, we know this happens where it's a very short hit of dopamine where we will go out, we will feel sad, whatever. We buy the new outfit, we put it on, and for like those 10 minutes, maybe the rest of that afternoon, we feel really great. But then the next day, we feel the same. Why? Because spending your money to regulate yourself, make yourself feel better, it'll never work because it's an external thing. You can't cure an internal thing or an internal conflict or internal emotion with an external thing. It doesn't work that way. So what happens is we start to learn that we need external things to regulate ourselves when it's not actually regulating us at all. So then we see this come out when we have a really hard time in day-to-day situations when our emotions get elevated. So this might mean like you may have a really stressful situation at work and you get a lot thrown on your plate, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to handle this. You're freaking out. You're so stressed. You're bitching to your partner. You're going to your boss. And what's happening is you have an opportunity in this moment to showcase that you can handle high stress situations really well, because that's what leaders do. That's how you get promoted. That's how you get recognized, is showcasing, hey, I actually do quite well when things are stressful and I can regulate myself pretty well. If you're someone who uses external things to regulate yourself, it's going to be really hard for you to do that. So the reason you're feeling very overwhelmed when stressful things come up is probably because you haven't learned how to regulate yourself without needing that external thing. It's similar to like, you'll probably have a really hard time dealing with conflict, or maybe you're like terrified of it, or if conflict does come up, whether maybe it's with your significant other, where you're like, maybe something, you're not happy with something, or I don't know, something's going on that you want to tell them about, but then you get scared and you're like, oh, I don't want to bring that up because I don't want to cause an issue and I don't want them to think this, and then you never actually bring it up. Or something may happen with your friends. Maybe they do something that upsets you. Maybe they've continuously done something that upsets you. You're not going to advocate for yourself because you're going to be like, I don't want to deal with conflict, right? How many times have you not had a conversation? Have you not gotten your needs met? Have you not advocated for yourself because you were scared to deal with conflict? You were scared to be the one that caused a burden onto someone, and you rather would just sweep it under the rug, right? It's going to be really hard for you to advocate for yourself, to deal with conflict, to deal with high stress situations if you're always relying on your money to try to regulate yourself instead of you doing it yourself. So that's going to be a really negative downfall. It's going to impact you just in many different aspects of your life. It's going to impact you in your career, of course, because like I said, you're going to showcase that you don't do very well under pressure. You're going to showcase that if something comes up, you panic, right? Managers, I've been a manager for many, many years. I've been in the corporate space for over a decade now. We look for people in leadership roles who can regulate themselves and do really well in high pressure situations. And if something were to come up, if a conflict does come up, whether it's with a client, whether it's within a team, we want to be confident that they know how to handle it from a very neutral and grounded place, not a reactive place. And it's very, very obvious that people who handle conflict and stress very reactively, and they start to panic and they start to spiral and they start to blame someone for like, oh my gosh, who's responsible for this? It's a very different texture when there is a lot of stress and there is a lot of pressure happening, and that person remains very calm, very grounded, and they look for what the solution is. Those people are always going to get promoted over the people who are not able to regulate themselves. It's very, very obvious. I'm telling you right now, it stands out like a sore thumb. In your relationships, if you are someone who cannot advocate for themselves because they're scared to deal with conflict, maybe you even lost friends over this. Maybe someone has done something and you got in a disagreement and you were so unable to deal with that conflict in a mature, non-reactive place that you just like ended the friendship. You're always going to feel like you're craving more from your relationships when you're not able to advocate for yourself. If you have desires that are not being met if people are doing things to upset you, what's going to happen is you're going to bottle that up, right? You don't want to deal with the conflict, so you're not going to tell them, you're going to bottle it up. What's happening is, one, you're not getting what you desire, so there's going to be this resentment that just builds up. And it's going to come out in a really what seems like inappropriate way. You're probably going to snap on someone, you're probably going to be short with someone. And what's going to happen is, because it's not talked about in the situation that is really at hand, which is what you're upset about, you're going to look like you're reactive. You're going to look like it was like an out of character moment for you. You're going to look like your friend, your partner, they're going to be like, why did you react like that? Right? Because it's not going to make sense to them why you have this resentment and why you're acting out, because you're not communicating with them. And all of a sudden, you start looking like the person that's crazy, that's reactive, that's insert whatever story they want to have or projection they want to have onto you, because you weren't able to communicate your needs in that moment. Okay, so you can start to see like how spending your money, if you don't have control over your emotions, it creates a lot of negative patterns for yourself. Another thing that happens is, when you are using your money as a means to try to get a quick dopamine hit and try to take control of your emotions or regulate yourself, what happens is you create another pattern of, you get addicted to short-term gratification. You get trained in your brain, oh, if I swipe my credit card, I'm going to get this happiness from this item, and it's going to be like an elevated level of happiness, but then it's going to drop really quickly. And we always forget about the time where it drops really quickly because we're already on to the next thing. Right? Like there was a time in my life when I was just a huge emotional spender, where it was like, it wasn't even the fact that it wasn't even the item that I was ordering. It was almost like the process of just getting it. Right? It's the process of you research it, and then you find it, and then you get the tracking information, and it's just like waiting for a few days to see when it arrives. And it's like tracking it along the journey, and then it finally arrives at your house, and in the process of opening it, and then you get it. And then 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, okay, now what? What's the next thing I can get, right? So it's not about the actual item. It's about the dopamine rush that comes with, and the excitement that comes with the process of actually ordering it. So what happens is we just get stuck in that loop of the highs and lows of dopamine rushes, and we're always chasing that, which you're going to see a direct result of that on your credit card, because you're going to end up with all this shit that you're like, why did I even buy this? Why did I buy all this stuff? I can't even tell you the amount of stuff that I was so convinced of, like, I need this in this moment, and I would buy it, and then a few weeks later, it was just like collecting dust in the back of my drawer. And then I would look at my credit card statement at the end of the month, and I get that like pit feeling in my stomach of like, why did I order all this shit? It seemed in the moment I needed it, but now, like, well, I don't. Why did it seem so urgent in the moment? Because you're creating this loop, this pattern, that you're addicted to short-term gratification. A negative consequence of that is, of course, this chase that you're going to be on, but it's going to be really hard for you to work towards long-term goals. When you're training your brain that, like, oh, you're addicted to the instant gratification. If I just swipe my card, I'll get this dopamine hit, and you're just constantly chasing that, you develop the inability to have discipline to work towards your long-term goals. And a lot of these long-term goals, like retirement, saving for a house, building a business, advancing your career, like, there's so many long-term goals that in the long run, they pay off much greater. They're much greater reward. They're much bigger impact to your life. But because you're always just so focused on the short term, you're not able to see them. You're not able to practice the discipline, the patience that it takes to get there. So you probably will have a really difficult time achieving long-term goals, right? So this is the pattern that we get ourselves into. So when you're going to spend your money, make sure that you are not using it as a means to regulate yourself. That's what's going to create the negative consequences of feeling like you always need something external to you to create that safety, that validation. You need to learn how to give that to yourself, which of course you learn when you do emotional intelligence work. You learn how to regulate your own emotions. You learn how to validate yourself. You learn how to build security and safety within yourself instead of needing it from some external source. And you learn discipline. You learn how to not be addicted to that short-term gratification. You learn how to work towards your longer-term goals. And in the long run, it really pays off. You get the promotion, you get the house, you build the business, you get to retire, you do all those things that someone who's addicted to short-term gratification would never be able to see because they're so focused on the short term. So when you are going to spend your money, some good things to just like sit with yourself and ask yourself and check in with yourself when you are doing that is, am I currently in a regulated state right now? Like, am I upset? Am I insecure? Am I feeling like my life is out of control? Like what state am I currently in right now? And you learn this when you do emotional intelligence work. You become so familiar with your cues and your triggers and like what activates you and all of that. And when you become emotionally intelligent, you're able to catch that like in the moment when it happens. But as you're doing this work, it's really checking in with yourself. Am I in a regulated state right now? Am I using money as a way to distract myself from an emotion that I'm feeling? Am I trying to like outspend my way out of feeling insecure, outspend my way out of feeling sad, out of feeling lonely, out of feeling bored? Because that's going to be a really good indicator that you're using money in a bad way and trying to spend your way out of regulating your own emotions, right? Was there something that happened or like triggered me to want to spend my money? And the more that you can get familiar with that, and the more you start to get in tune with the way that you operate and the patterns that you have around your spending habits, the more that you can start to catch them a lot quicker in the moment so that you start to regulate and control yourself instead of just looking at your credit card after the fact and be like, what the heck happened here? Let me know what landed for you guys over on Instagram. I hope that this was helpful. I can't wait to see how you guys improve your spending habits, and I will see you in the next episode.